They were quite rigid and quite structured within their shape, which is why I felt picking a box against them and really matching them up and go for man would be aggressive against them and would give us, kind of joy in terms of how many times we could turn the ball over. The games I'm going to be covering is the League Two playoffs. In the semi-final we played MK Dons and in the final we played Crewe. So my starting lineup was Corey in goal. We played a three at the back with Will Wright on the right-hand side, Dion Conroy, who was captain, through the middle, Lawrence Maguire on the left-hand side. We played with two pivots in midfield. On the right-hand side, Jay Williams, left-hand side, Liam Kelly. Two wing-backs, right-hand side was Harry Forster, left-hand side was Jeremy Kelly. Two number 10s in Clyde Lolas on the right, Adam Campbell on the left, and single striker in Danilo Orsi. We played obviously what I call a free box three. You can call it a 3-4-3, but we play with two 10s quite narrow, so we kind of call it a box. Our wing-backs are really high, pretty much on the same line as the striker. The reason why we went with this system, previous to this, we'd played with two strikers, actually played a 3-5-2, like a generic 3-5-2. And we felt, looking at MK, if we played with two strikers against their back three, we felt that it would give them a little more control in the game. Obviously, with having an extra one, with them being possession-based, we felt that they would get out and kind of gain momentum up the pitch. It's an actual fact that we felt that playing with one striker would be actually more aggressive, and then it depends on who we jump onto the outside centre-halves from there. So we looked at jumping the two number 10s onto the outside centre-halves and being aggressive in that manner, where our centre-halves would look after their striker, their two number 10s, wing back to wing back, wing back to wing back. We looked at that, but there was something not quite right about that for me. And I felt that their wing backs were really high and aggressive, and their two number 10s were quite narrow, similar to ours in many ways, and their wing backs were really high, same line as the striker. And what I didn't want is my wing backs to stay pinned back. So in actual fact, we thought it'd be better for our two number 10s to look after their two pivots. We felt that our two pivots would be better off looking after their two number 10s, and our wing backs would be really aggressive against their two outside centre-halves, meaning our two outside centre-halves had to look after their wing backs like that. That felt to me more aggressive, and the decision that was made was because of their positioning. With their positioning being really high, I felt that our outside centre-halves could deal with that, meaning we could get real pressure on the ball high up the pitch from our wing-backs. We also felt that if the ball turned over, we had good attacking players in forward areas, and that was the reasoning behind it. So MK Dons, they played a very similar shape to us. So they played a three at the back, a box in midfield, two wing-backs and a striker. One thing we noticed when we analysed MK was they were really structured within their shape. There was not many movements or rotations within their shape. They were quite structured with it, and the two pivots played as pivots. The two 10s stayed kind of central areas. Two wing-backs were kind of up and down, and obviously the striker being a striker. But yeah, they were quite rigid and quite structured within their shape, which is why I felt picking a box against them and really matching them up and go for man would be aggressive against them and would give us, kind of joy in terms of how many times we could turn the ball over. So in terms of the press, we're really aggressive with this approach. Obviously the spare man for them would be the keeper, but we felt that any time that the ball went back to the keeper, we'd follow our press through and make him kick it. The downside to this was, when we are 1v1s, is that they could play up, kind of back, and then kind of through balls, or one ball could beat us. I think it happened in the first game, in the first 2-3 minutes, where ball goes back to the keeper kicks it, Max Dean, I think Dion probably slipped, Max Dean goes through, one-on-one with Corey. right side centre half, Will Wright, recovers and clears it off the line. So kind of a big moment within the game. So that is the downside to going man for man. You know, one ball can beat you, or an up back through can beat you. But we were really confident and really aggressive that we knew MK would play, make sure that they made plenty of passes at the back, and we knew we'd steal it. We felt that they never got control in the game, especially in the first game. We didn't think that they got any control in the game because of our aggressive nature about how we wanted to press against them. We recognised quite early on that their two number 10s were going to jump to our outside centre-backs. They were going to go wing-back to wing-back, and their two pivots were going to jump onto our pivots, leaving kind of a 5v5 on the top line. So what we wanted to do with this was to try and create a 2v1 here. So that probably felt aggressive to them, so we kind of jumped them a little bit higher. The two outside centre-backs would jump their 10s high, like that, and then Dion would split with Corey, creating a 2v1 in that situation. Max Dean would press Dion. Dion would play across to Corey, and then he would be reluctant to jump at that point, and he would come to a degree, and then we would kind of get further advanced up the pitch. Corey would come, and there was actions where he would then wait for Max Dean to press. Dion would step in here, Corey would make a pass here, and we would be out through the initial press. There was also times when we would play what I call the hook, where again, 2v1, Max Dean would press Dion would play across to Corey, Dean would go again. And then at the right moment, when he's within kind of 2 or 3 foot from him, we'd get the pivot to drop in. We'd play to the pivot. Dion would be in a position where we could receive in space, and then Dion would bring the ball up, and then we'd get out the initial press. There's also times when we jumped Lawrence really high and aggressive, and again it'd be Dion on the ball. Max Dean would press. We'd play across to Corey. Corey would bring the ball. There was certain times when Corey was nearly at the halfway line, where Dean had to do a lot of work. He'd go press, and then we'd clip a diagonal ball for Lawrence Maguire to head in, and we would collect it in these sort of areas here. When we kind of got advanced up the pitch and we were controlled with our possession, we had what we call a shape shift, so we would bump Liam Kelly slightly higher, almost like becoming a number 8 stroke number 10 himself, which would then bump Adam Campbell on to become basically a striker, and then we'd become more like a generic 3-5-2, and then we could kind of bring Dion through the pitch, and a couple of goals happened where Liam Kelly was really in these advanced positions. I think his first goal, he received the ball where he had a roll out in these sort of positions. We played into Adam, followed his pass through, and got his goal in the first game, in the first semi-final. It's what we call a shape shift. So once we get over that halfway line, like I say, we want to bump Liam a bit higher, Adam a bit higher to become a second striker, leaving Jay Williams as a single pivot, and then we can kind of get into them advanced positions, knowing that Liam Kelly can hurt the opposition with his ability. And then we worked on kind of little bits and pieces like stick passes. We call them stick passes, where, for argument's sake, Liam Kelly might have the ball there. He'll give eyes to Jeremy Kelly, bit of eyes, bit of body language, bit of contact with each other, and all of a sudden he's in, ball down the side, and he's in behind him there. It might be on the other side where Lolas has got it. Eye contact with Harry Forster. He's bringing it, slides him in, ball's in there, and we can look at pullbacks and more like passing lines rather than crossing it. So yeah, they were sort of like the actions that we worked on in the final third. The attitude going kind of 3-0 up in the first leg and going into the second leg, a lot of people spoke to me about what the game plan would be for the second leg. Would we become a little bit more conservative, a little bit more safer within our approach? And my attitude was, no, we're going to do exactly the same and we're going to do it better. And for me, it worked because kind of in the first moments of the second game, there was an action where I think it was the middle centre half gets it off the keeper. Alex Gilby comes down to receive the ball really deep, kind of in that position there. Jay Williams, the right side pivot, goes really aggressive all the way with him. The centre back plays the ball into Gilby. Jay Williams is really aggressive in the action, steals the ball, brings it through, scores 4-0. You know, so I was really pleased that the attitude to go and do the same in the second game was really important to me. We felt that maybe in the second game they might do something different. So we still wanted to create this 2v1, but we felt that maybe they might jump from a different position. So we worked on 3 different scenarios where we could get out. So Dion would have the ball, he'd play with Corey, and then we felt that maybe Max Dean might press Dion, play across to Corey, and then maybe it might be Alex Gilby would jump from this number 10 position who was marking Will Wright, and he would jump from this position. So we worked at the pivot dropping in at that moment where we could play into Jay Williams to get Will Wright out, and we get out that way. So we kind of constantly worked on that for the second game. We also felt that there might be opportunity for the left side pivot, which was Bate, to jump. So Corey might have the ball. Max Dean would make sure that he covered Dion Conroy. Bate would then jump into this area here. We'd make sure that Jay Williams come down the line a little bit. We'd play into Will to get Jay on the ball. Again, we'd get through the press. And the third scenario, which we worked on, which is the one that they actually did, was the left side 10, Wern, would jump. So this time it would be Max Dean would jump onto Corey, and then he'd start to go onto Dion. So we looked at patterns where we dropped in, we played to Dion to invite Wern on, and then also Lawrence Maguire to drop down the rail slightly, just so we could get him out, and then we'd be up the pitch, advanced out of their press. A couple of things we noticed in terms of their press, especially from watching the first game back, was how their pivots jumped. Say Corey had the ball here, or plays to Dion. Dion receives here, gets pressed, and then Jay Williams drops in, he plays, and then the 2 pivots would go really aggressive against our 2 pivots like that, leaving a 5v5 on the top line. So then we would look at set, and then we'd look at up back through. So whether it's a ball into the striker, then we spin in, receiving and playing forward, or whether it's a ball into feet where Jeremy Kelly was excellent at receiving the ball off the line and coming inside on his stronger foot, his right footed playing on the left. It'd be like a bounce, invite the press, space, bounce back, Jeremy Kelly, safe side comes in the shape, and all of a sudden we're now looking at these sort of actions where we're getting balls down the side of them, which worked, especially in the second game after we analysed it from the first game. So there are little things like that we looked at. And also we looked at, because the top line, if the top line were really high, like their back line was really high and we were marked like that, and then we had that initial press again from their pivots where we played in, invited the press, played back, and their line was really high. We looked at good movement off the back of them so we could play balls kind of in behind their back line, which kind of worked as well. Lola's really calm. He slid in, Liam Kelly, keeper comes out. Dan Horsey just comes into a square position, plays across goal, you know, and it was kind of like really calm within the chaos. There was a lot of bodies in there and we just played through into Liam. Liam didn't panic at all. The keeper come out, kind of opened the goal up for Danilo, Horsey, and Horsey just tucks it away. The game was pretty much won at this moment now, you know, and we had an action where Jack Rolls had a shot, keeper kind of saved it onto the post. I think they clear it, and you could feel the players really manage that moment so well, because we felt that we'd won the game at that moment and we just rested with the ball. I think we made 50 passes within that action, you know. As soon as the ball hit the post, we retrieve it and we just rest with the ball. You know, we get good triangles, we get people dropping into pockets. And you know, no disrespect, but MK looked really disheartened in that moment. Coming back off Corey would rest with the ball there, Dion would split, we'd play, we'd bring the ball out, we'd make passes, and we'd just rest with the ball, and we just saw the game out with possession. In terms of the final, we went with the same shape. The one change I made from the semi-finals was Kellen Gordon coming for Harry Forster, which was a forced change to make, obviously. Harry Forster got injured in the semi-final, so we had to make that change. But we're really confident with Kellen. Kellen Gordon had played a lot of football for us throughout the season, so we're really happy with the team that we'd picked. Same shape, back three, boxing midfield, 2 wing-backs and a striker. Crewe, they played a 4-2-3-1. Going into the game, we was unsure really about what shape they'd play. Lee Bell, who's a really good manager, he's played various shapes with Crewe. You know, sometimes they play with a back three, sometimes they play with a back four. So getting prepared for the game was quite tough. But what we did was we made sure that we covered both scenarios. If they were going to play a back three, we knew how we was going to press. If they played a back four, we knew how we was going to press. So we were quite kind of organised, but it just became a little bit more work on the training ground just to make sure that everything was covered. In terms of how we pressed against them, one of their best players was Mickey Dimitriou, so we wanted to make sure that we put real good pressure on him. So we had Danilo Orsi ready to press Dimitriou. So with our midfield structure, we ended up with Jay Williams looking after their number 10. Then we had Clydie Lowless and Liam Kelly kind of jumping slightly higher, which bumped Adam Campbell on to press their right-hand side centre-half. Then what we'd do is we would have our back line, as it were, looking after their front three. So for argument's sake, if Dimitriou had the ball there, then Danilo Orsi would press and kind of show him to the line. If he played to his fullback, then we would jump Kellen on really aggressively and be aggressive behind the ball and almost create a 2v1 here. So we had good depth and numbers here. And then we'd get the wing-back on this side, Jeremy Kelly, to be what I call in on the pinch. So he'd be in on the pinch there, making sure we got a 2v1, matched up in midfield. Obviously, an aggressive press across their back line, leaving their right back on the other side spare. Aggressive over one side of the pitch. Now, obviously, if they switched the play through their keeper and they went kind of out and played these sort of balls here, then we would readjust our positioning really quickly, where Jeremy Kelly would go put pressure on the ball high up, Lawrence Maguire would be over, Dion would come over, Will would come over, Kellen Gordon would get back in on the pinch. Same again, aggressive across one side of the pitch, like that, leaving the opposite fullback. And we felt that we wanted to keep him this way. So the way you would press is press to the line, and we would hope for scenarios like that where we could steal the ball and start our possession from there. We knew also that with these two outside wing-backs being what I call in on the pinch, that it would give us numbers at the back with their direct style as well. You know, they made passes. There was times when they made passes, but there's also times when they go really direct. So we needed to make sure that this back line was correct and we had good numbers behind the ball. So when they went direct, we always had that spare one there where we could go aggressive and one spare behind, and we could pick up and play from there. In terms of our build, very similar in many ways to MK Dons, where we knew that their kind of outside players would jump onto our outside centre-half, so we would bring them slightly higher, like this, and then try and create another 2v1 with Dion and Corey. So what we did was we had actions where, again, the centre-forward, Nevitt, would press, we'd play Corey. But once Corey kind of got possession in these positions here, we knew that we could not kick the ball in this area here because of Dimitriou's defensive ability to head the ball back in. And when we played Crewe before, when we played Crewe before, we made passes like this. Crawley brought it out and he kicked a lot down there, and they headed it back in, and they picked a lot of second balls up within that game. So we wanted to make sure that once we got Corey out and Dion was pressed and we got him out, we wanted to make sure that we kicked this side of the pitch. So we really jumped Lawrence Maguire high. So Lawrence would come into these sort of positions here, and we would get Jeremy Kelly really advanced, and we would make kind of them sort of passes in here to Lawrence to either control or head down into these bodies in. We'd pick the second up and play from there. There was times kind of early on in the final where we'd get Corey out, and then Jay Williams would drop in, but the number 10 Rowe was really aggressive behind him, and we tried to make them passes where Nevitt would press Dion, we'd play to Corey, Nevitt would recover his run, start to press Corey now. So we knew Dion was a spare man, and we tried to play them hook passes, but we felt that the aggressive nature of Rowe was really apparent. So we changed that really quickly, and I didn't want to make them risk passes into there to get that hook out, because I just felt that he was so aggressive within that moment. So we either had him running away and we could get Liam Kelly on the ball in them moments and turn and advance forward, or we would have, like I say, Lawrence Maguire getting into these positions here, and we would kick a longer pass. In terms of our shape, when we got further advanced up the pitch, again, we'd have a shape shift where we would bump Liam Kelly slightly higher. So again, Adam Campbell would become that second striker. Liam Kelly would kind of jump a little bit higher into these positions here. We would have Jay Williams more of a single pivot, as it were. And, we'd start kind of making sure that Liam Kelly was involved in a lot of our attacking actions. With his ability to find passes, with his ability to shoot, with his ability to pick people out. So we wanted him higher up the pitch. And you saw from the first goal, there was, in fact, just before we scored the first goal, we had a real good action where we played real intricate play around the edge of the box. And Liam ended up getting through and having a shot. And then, of course, Danilo Orsi's goal, Liam Kelly was involved in that, where he'd played into Dan Orsi. Orsi turns and scores. And then, of course, later on in the game where Liam Kelly's really advanced high up the pitch again, he gets into these little pockets here and scores his goal. So we wanted Liam to be really high and aggressive, which kind of left Jay Williams as the single pivot in them moments. When I come into Crawley in January of last season, and there was a lot that needed to happen in the background. There was a lot of players that needed to be moved on, and we needed to recruit the right people. So a lot of work had to be done in the background, and we had to build a culture in which this way of playing was really apparent. That we needed to build a culture in order for this to work. We needed to have a work ethic where everybody was willing to run really hard. That's important to me, that the players are willing to run hard. You can't play this way if the players are not going to run. So I had to change the culture. In order for me to change the culture, I had to change personnel. So we did that over time. And now we've got a real hungry set of players who are willing to run hard and play in this way. They enjoy it. We have a lot of the ball. We're dominant with possession, and the players really enjoy it. What the 3 victories meant to me was a real sense of satisfaction in terms of how we played in all 3 games. I'm kind of a coach who has always gone after performances, and results will be the byproduct of them performances. So I was really big on how we performed every week. And to be honest with you, we performed very similar to that most of the season. We didn't always get it right. We didn't always win, but we were always big on performances. And I felt that the 3 playoff games, everything fell into place perfectly. We scored some good goals. We were really aggressive on the press. We played some really good football. So it was really satisfying for me was the actual performance over the results. Of course, the results is the reason why we got promoted. But the actual way and the manner that we went about all 3 games was really satisfying for me as a coach.